Have you ever spent an entire weekend decluttering, only to find your home messy again just days later? You stand in the middle of your living room surrounded by bags ready to donate, yet instead of relief, there's a heavy silence. That's when it hits you. Minimalism was supposed to feel freeing, but instead, it feels empty. I remember sitting on the floor of my own bedroom, clothes piled high around me, and feeling like I'd failed. I thought, if less is more, why do I still feel so weighed down? It was a shocking moment, because nobody tells you this truth. Decluttering doesn't always heal the loneliness, the guilt, or the fear of being forgotten. That's the twist most people don't expect. We're told to throw things away, to simplify, to embrace minimalism like it's the ultimate answer. But for so many of us, especially after 60, the clutter isn't just stuff. It's proof of a life lived. It's the echo of voices that may no longer be in our homes. And the unspoken fear is this: if I let go of everything, what will be left of me? Here's the promise of today's video. I'm not here to pressure you into empty white rooms or tell you to throw out half your life. Instead, I'm here to share 5 brutal truths about decluttering minimalism that no one talks about. Truths that will finally give you permission to do it your way. Simple, gentle, and human. And if you stay until the very end, I'll share the one shift that made decluttering stop feeling like loss and start feeling like love. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from, and how has your relationship with your home been lately? We read every single comment, and your story might be just what someone else needs today. So, let's begin. And the first truth, it's one that might sting a little, but it's also the one that sets everything else free. Truth 1. Decluttering doesn't heal loneliness. Have you ever walked into a spotless room and felt an ache instead of peace? The table is clear, the shelves are empty, but instead of freedom, there's a hollow quiet that almost hurts. Here's the truth no one tells you. Decluttering doesn't fix loneliness. Throwing out belongings doesn't magically fill the silence left when children move away, or when loved ones are no longer here. That's why for so many older adults, a perfectly tidy space can sometimes feel colder, not warmer. I think of Mrs. Tanaka, a widow in her 70s who spent weeks purging her home after her husband passed. She donated clothes, cleared cabinets, and even boxed up old photo frames. When I visited her, the house was immaculate, but she whispered, "It feels like I erased him, and now it's just me and these 4 walls." That's the heartbreak behind the clutter conversation that minimalist books rarely mention. The silent fear many people over 60 carry is this: if I let go of all these objects, will I also lose the last traces of connection I have? The teacup that reminds you of morning chats, the chair where your husband used to read, the scarf your daughter bought you on vacation. These things feel like anchors in a world where time keeps pulling us forward. And I'll be honest, I've felt it too. I remember clearing my father's old toolbox. I thought I was doing the minimalist thing. But when I set it out by the curb, I cried like I hadn't in years, not because I needed the tools, but because I realized decluttering can't take the place of human presence. It can't hug you back. One older friend of mine said it best: an empty house is easy to clean, but it doesn't invite laughter. That line has stayed with me, because it's not about having fewer things. It's about having the right things, the ones that hold warmth without weighing you down. So if you've decluttered and still feel lonely, you're not broken. You're human. Instead of expecting a clean room to fill that gap, focus on what actually does. Calling a friend, joining a local group, or even keeping 1 or 2 memory-rich objects that make you smile. You can do this too, in a way that feels kind to your heart. What about you? Do you have an item you've kept, not because it's useful, but because it feels like company? Share in the comments, because your story may be exactly what another person needs to hear. And here's the bridge. If loneliness is the shadow of decluttering, the next truth may surprise you even more, because it's about the hidden exhaustion that sneaks in while you're sorting, and why most seniors give up halfway through. Let's talk about that. Truth 2. Minimalism can become another form of perfectionism. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, if my home doesn't look like those perfect minimalist photos online, I must be failing? That's the trap so many of us fall into. What starts as a way to find peace often turns into another impossible standard, an invisible pressure to prove that we're living the right way. Minimalism, when done with kindness, should feel like freedom. But for some seniors, it becomes another set of rules to measure yourself against. I should have fewer clothes. My kitchen should look emptier. My living room should look like a magazine. And before you know it, instead of feeling lighter, you feel judged, sometimes by others, sometimes just by yourself. I remember Mrs. Alvarez, a retired teacher I worked with. She proudly showed me her newly decluttered apartment, but then her voice dropped and she said, "I kept 2 sets of dishes. Is that wrong?" The book said I should only keep 1. She wasn't celebrating her progress. She was criticizing herself for not being minimalist enough. That broke my heart, because she had done something incredible, yet she couldn't see it. The unspoken fear here is painful. If I can't even get decluttering right, does that mean I've lost control of everything else too? For many people over 60, that fear of being behind or not good enough can echo the deeper worries about aging, losing independence, being forgotten, or no longer measuring up. And I'll tell you, I felt that sting too. When I first tried to simplify, I thought minimalism meant stark white walls and 3 pairs of clothes. I pushed myself too hard, and instead of feeling calm, I felt empty, like I'd erased not just clutter, but comfort. It took me time to realize, minimalism isn't about having the least. It's about having what feels right for you. A woman in my support group once said something that stayed with me. I finally let go of the pressure to be a perfect minimalist. Now I just aim for a kind home, not a catalog. Isn't that beautiful? So if you've been feeling like you're failing because your space isn't minimalist enough, take a breath. You're not failing. You're creating a home that works for you. You can do this too, without shame, without apology. Let me ask, have you ever felt that pressure, as if decluttering was another test you could fail? Share your story below, because someone out there needs to hear they're not alone. And as we move forward, the next truth gets even closer to the heart. It's about the emotional weight we carry, the memories, the love, the loss, and why letting go of things is never as simple as dropping them in a donation box. Truth 3. Memories are not in things, but letting go still hurts. Do you ever find yourself opening a box in the attic or sliding open a forgotten drawer, only to be flooded by memories? Maybe it's a birthday card with handwriting that has long since stopped, a scarf that still faintly carries the scent of someone you loved, or a chipped coffee mug that once sat on your family table for years. Your mind whispers, "It's just an object." But your heart replies, "No, this is part of me." That tension, the knowledge that memories don't actually live in things, yet feeling the ache of loss when we try to release them, is one of the hardest truths about decluttering. And it's a truth that no one really prepares you for. So how do we navigate this without breaking our own hearts? One gentle path is something I call the keep the story, not the stack method. Instead of keeping every single greeting card, choose the 3 that truly capture the voices you never want to forget, and take clear photos of the rest. Instead of storing dozens of clothing pieces from someone you loved, choose one that carries the strongest memory. The jacket worn on your last holiday trip together, or the blouse from that milestone birthday. By doing this, you honor the memory without drowning in the weight of hundreds of items that silently crowd your space. Let me tell you about Mrs. Emmy, a widow I once met. After her husband passed, she kept 3 full closets of his shirts. She told me, "If I give them away, it's like I'm losing him all over again." For years, she couldn't touch them. Her children gently urged her to make space, but every attempt left her in tears. When we worked together, I didn't ask her to get rid of them all. Instead, we chose one shirt, the one he wore on their last anniversary dinner, still with a faint trace of his cologne. She held it against her chest and whispered, "This one stays with me." Slowly, she gathered the courage to donate the rest to a local shelter. Weeks later, she called me and said, "For the first time, I can open my closet without feeling crushed." His love didn't leave with the shirts. It's still here. That shift didn't erase the grief, but it gave her room to breathe again. And here's where the deeper wound comes in. For many people over 60, the fear isn't really about losing objects. It's about losing proof. proof that someone was here, proof that we loved, that we were loved. The quiet fear goes something like this. If I let go of their things, will I start to forget them? And when I'm gone, will others forget me too? It's a fear of vanishing, of being erased by time and silence. That's why the act of decluttering can feel so brutal. It isn't about space, it's about identity, memory, and legacy. I've felt this myself. When my father passed, his old tool chest sat in my garage for years. Every time I saw the rusty hammers and worn screwdrivers, I thought, if I throw these away, I'll lose the sound of him working on Saturday mornings. But one day, while organizing, I picked up a hammer and realized something. The hammer wasn't holding the memory. I was. Every time I smell sawdust, I still remember him bending over his workbench. Every time I fix something with my own hands, I hear his voice teaching me patience. The tool didn't carry the story. My heart did. That realization was both painful and liberating. It gave me permission to keep one or two pieces that mattered most and let the rest go without guilt. I once heard an older woman say with tears in her eyes, "Objects fade, but love never does." That line has echoed in me ever since, and I've shared it with many people struggling with the same dilemma. It's a gentle reminder that the essence of our relationships is not stored in boxes or closets. It's stored in the way we tell stories, the way we smile when we remember, and the way we live out the lessons those people gave us. So if you're standing in front of a box of memories, frozen in that moment of, I can't possibly let this go, try this. Pause, put your hand on your heart, and ask, do I remember the story without this object? If the answer is yes, you can release it. If the answer is no, maybe keep just one piece, and let the others move on to someone who can use them. Because in truth, you don't need 200 reminders to keep someone close. Sometimes one is more powerful than all the rest combined. And I want to say this softly. You can do this too. You don't need to rush. You don't need to clear everything in a single day. But little by little, you can begin to free yourself from the weight of things without ever losing the weight of love. Now let me ask you, what's the hardest memory item for you to part with? Is it clothing, photos, letters, or something else? Share it in the comments. Sometimes naming it out loud is the first step toward finding peace. And as we move into the next truth, we'll uncover something even more surprising, how minimalism itself can carry hidden costs. Because sometimes letting go too far can feel just as heavy as holding on. Truth 4. Clutter isn't just physical, it drains your energy. 4 minutes. Do you ever notice how just walking into a cluttered room makes your shoulders tense? You haven't lifted a box, you haven't bent down to clean, yet your body already feels heavier. That's because clutter isn't only about things on shelves. It steals energy from your mind and spirit before you even touch a single item. One of the simplest ways to see this is to track your own reactions. Try this tomorrow morning. When you walk into your kitchen, pause for 10 seconds. Notice your breathing. Is it light and free, or is there a subtle tightness as you glance at the pile of unopened mail, the half-empty jars, or the drawer that won't quite close? That little sigh you let out, that's clutter draining you without your permission. And the fix doesn't always require hours of effort. Sometimes it's as small as clearing one corner, wiping one counter, or making one drawer close smoothly. You can do this too. I think of Mrs. Haruko, a 72-year-old woman I once spoke with. She confessed that she no longer invited her grandchildren to sleep over because the house just feels too tiring. At first I thought she meant the stairs or the cooking. But when I visited, I realized her exhaustion came from the visual noise. Stacks of newspapers on the dining table, 3 sewing projects half-finished in the living room, closets crammed so full she had to push hard to shut the doors. She wasn't lazy, she was overwhelmed. Every corner whispered, "You still have to deal with me." Once she started doing a simple 2-minute reset each evening, just clearing one visible surface, her energy lifted enough that she began hosting again. She told me, "I didn't know my mess was making me so tired until I finally felt what lightness was like." And here's the deeper fear hiding underneath. For many of us over 60, it's not just about the mess. It's about losing stamina, about feeling like life itself has become too much. The unspoken dread is this: if I can't manage my home, will people think I can't manage myself? Will I slowly fade into being forgotten? That's why clutter feels so heavy. It's not the dust, it's what the dust represents. I've lived this too. When my desk was covered with papers, I used to tell myself, I'll deal with it later. But each morning, seeing that pile was like starting the day already behind. I learned that every object left out is not just physical, it's a small decision demanding your attention. Multiply that by hundreds of items, and no wonder we feel depleted. A study once revealed that people living in messy homes have higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, throughout the day. No wonder so many of us collapse on the couch at night, not because of what we did, but because of what we saw and felt surrounding us. So let me ask you gently, where in your home do you feel your energy sink the most? Is it that one junk drawer, the overstuffed closet, or maybe the dining table that doubles as a storage shelf? Share it in the comments. Sometimes naming the energy drain out loud is the first step to taking your power back. And please remember, you don't need to conquer the whole house to feel lighter. One shelf cleared is one breath returned. One drawer emptied is one night of better sleep. You can do this too. Now, as we move forward, let's open the curtain on the final truth, one that most people avoid admitting. Decluttering isn't about the things at all. It's about confronting time, mortality, and what we want the rest of our life to look like. Truth 5. Decluttering is not about stuff. It's about self-trust. Do you ever notice that the hardest part of letting go isn't the item itself, but the tiny voice that whispers, "What if you regret this later?" That's not clutter speaking. That's self-doubt. And here's the truth few admit. Decluttering is never really about the objects. It's about trusting yourself enough to believe, I will be okay without this. One of the simplest ways to practice this is with what I call the 24-hour trust test. The next time you hold something and hesitate, instead of keeping it just in case, put it in a box by the door. Tell yourself, if I truly need it in the next 24 hours, I'll bring it back out. More often than not, you'll forget what you put in the box, and in that forgetting, you'll discover the muscle of self-trust quietly growing. You can do this too. I remember speaking with Mrs. Lyon, a 68-year-old retired nurse. Her closet was filled with uniforms and scrubs she hadn't worn in over a decade. She told me, "These remind me of who I was. But if I let them go, what if I lose that part of myself?" Beneath that question was her real fear, not of fabric, but of fading into irrelevance. After weeks of wrestling, she donated them to a training program for young nurses. The next day, she told me, "I didn't lose myself. I felt like I passed the torch." That moment wasn't about clothes at all. It was about trusting that her worth remained even without the uniform. And this is the quiet fear many over 60 carry but rarely name. It's not about clutter. It's about wondering, can I still make good decisions? Or am I too old, too forgetful, too stuck in the past? That's why each drawer cleared is so much more than tidying. It's proof to yourself. I can still choose. I can still steer my life. I've faced this too. I once held on to boxes of old journals, terrified that throwing them away meant erasing pieces of myself. But when I finally let go, I realized my wisdom wasn't trapped in those pages. It was already living inside me. That's when I understood decluttering isn't about the objects. It's about trusting that I already carry what matters most. There's a saying from an older woman that has stayed with me. Less stuff means more faith in myself. And the science backs it up. Studies show that people who practice small acts of letting go regularly build resilience and confidence in decision-making. It's not about discipline, it's about trust. So let me ask you gently, what item in your home is testing your self-trust right now? Is it an old career reminder, a stack of just-in-case gadgets, or maybe a box of papers you haven't opened in years? Share it in the comments, because naming it might be the very first step to reclaiming your trust. And as we close this truth, let's carry this realization. The real reward of decluttering isn't a clean room. It's the quiet assurance inside that whispers, I can handle my life. And in the next part, I'll help you see how to carry that assurance forward, not just into your home, but into the next chapter of your days. Doesn't it feel lighter already, even just imagining it? We've walked together through 5 brutal truths, not to scare you, but to set you free. These truths aren't about perfection. They're about honesty, kindness, and learning to see clutter not as failure, but as an invitation to live with more ease. I'm reminded of Evelyn. When she finally let go of boxes that had been sitting untouched for decades, she said something I'll never forget. I realized what I was really keeping wasn't the objects, but the weight of responsibility. And when those boxes left her home, she didn't feel empty. She felt at peace. What stayed behind wasn't the stuff, but a sense of calm she thought she'd lost forever. Because here's the real insight. Decluttering is not about things. It's about reclaiming your life. It's about deciding, gently but firmly, this matters, this doesn't, and I can trust myself to know the difference. I'll admit, there was a time when I thought decluttering meant losing memories, losing comfort, even losing parts of myself. But the truth is softer, kinder. Decluttering is not about losing. It's about choosing presence over distraction, choosing peace over chaos, choosing yourself right here, right now. As one older woman once told me, clear space, clear heart. Those words hold more truth than any cleaning manual. So let me ask you, which truth resonated with you most today? Was it about loneliness, perfectionism, memories, energy, or self-trust? Share it below. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs to take their first brave step. And as we close, let me whisper this reminder. Be kind to your space, and even kinder to yourself. You can do this too.